Laura, I just wanted to point out I've got a hard stop personally at 10:15, so I'm going to drop out then. I hope that doesn't cause a quorum problem.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to be able to read this. Call to order the Friday, February 14th, happy Valentine's Day.
Laura, did you hear Mark?
Commission. Jay is on. Jay, please read the Open Public Meetings Act.
Good.
Yes,
Can the
good.
Commission hear us on Zoom?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this up.
Good morning. Can the commissioners hear us on Zoom?
I can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, Laura, I made a comment earlier. I don't think you heard that I have to stop the meeting personally at 10:15. I have a conflict, so hopefully that won't pose a quorum issue for you.
No, we should be good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, go ahead, Jay.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Pinelands Commission was given in compliance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act by providing notice to all municipal and county clerks within the Pinelands area and to the Secretary of State on December 20, 2024, and to the Commission's officially designated newspapers on December 20, 2024, and by posting a copy on the Commission's website.
Thank you. Sue, can you please call roll?
Okay, Commissioner Selton.
Here.
Commissioner Avery.
Here.
Commissioner Boswiko. Here. Commissioner Holroyd.
Here.
Commissioner Iron.
Here.
What are you going there?
Next to each other again.
I'll just say you. Commissioner Lettman. Commissioner Lobauer.
Here.
Commissioner Morales.
Here.
Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Zalinski.
Here.
Commissioner Riddler Sanchez here. Commissioner, I have to figure out how to say his name. Signor, we know he's not here. He's our newest commissioner. He'll be here next month. Commissioner Wallner.
Here.
And here.
Excellent. Everyone, please rise and bring me in pledge.
Oh, yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a motion and a second, please, to adopt the minutes from our January 10th meeting?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed. Okay. Before we move on with the agenda, Sue mentioned during the roll call, we have a new commissioner from Gloucester County that will be joining us next month, who wasn't able to make it today because Dan Christie stepped down. So we have here a resolution honoring him and thanking him for his service. So can I get a motion and a second?
Motion. I'll second.
Thank you. And I will read it.
So moved.
Whereas Dan Christie served as Gloucester County's representative on the Pinelands Commission from February 20th, 2019 to January 28th, 2025. And whereas Commissioner Christie brought a wealth of experience in public service to the Pinelands Commission, he served on the Gloucester County Board of Commissioners, where he oversaw the Department of Public Safety and Veterans Affairs. As a carpenter for over 30 years, he has helped organize and has participated in various projects through the Carpenters Union, including wheelchair ramps, VFW post remodels and additions, and post-Hurricane Sandy relief projects. He also served on the Gloucester County Improvement Authority, the Washington Township Planning Board, and the Washington Township Environmental Committee. And whereas during his tenure, the Pinelands Commission adopted 3 sets of amendments to the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan, including rule changes that strengthen the protection of the Kirkwood-Cohansey Aquifer System while ensuring sufficient water supply for authorized development in the growth-oriented portions of the Pinelands area. And whereas during his tenure, the Commission took immediate steps to ensure the agency continued to accomplish its mission to safeguard the Pinelands during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas during his tenure, the commission successfully secured a national scenic byway designation for the 130-mile Pine Barrens Byway. And whereas during his tenure, the commission hired a new executive director, advanced the work of its climate committee, reviewed and acted on more than 160 public development applications, reviewed and certified more than 660 municipal master plan and ordinance amendments, completed and launched numerous scientific studies, and educated thousands of people about our region's natural, cultural, and historic resources. And whereas the members of the commission want to recognize Commissioner Christie's significant contributions and express their appreciation for the service that he performed. And now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Pinelands Commission hereby express our appreciation to our colleague and friend Dan Christie for his commitment to the Pinelands and for his service as a member of the commission from February 20th, 2019 to January 28th, 2025. All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, good.
And just Paul's showing you on the screen this amazingly gorgeous photo that he took. This is, we ordered a canvas print of this as a farewell gift for Dan, as soon as that comes, we'll be shipping that off to him.
Yes, it's a 24 by 16 canvas print. This is a photo at Piney Hollow Preserve in the Pinelands area of Franklin Township in Gloucester County. Of course, he's from Gloucester County. When we do these parting gifts, we always like to show and provide a photo from the commissioner's home county. And so here's what it will look like in his living room.
Beautiful.
He has an extensive collection of bosses. So that will arrive on the 20th. And so we're excited for that.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on, committee chairs and other staff reports. We're gonna start with the P&I committee, since I was unable to attend. Vice Chair Alan Avery, can you please brief us on the meeting?
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you. Now that I have permission. This is the summary of the minutes of the CMP Policy and Implementation Committee meeting held January 31st, 2025. The committee approved the minutes of the November 22nd, 2024 meeting. The committee reviewed and discussed the executive director's report on Barnegat Township ordinance amending the C end zone west of the Parkway. Committee members, moved to recommend certification ordinance 2024-32 to the full commission. The committee also reviewed and discussed the executive director's report on Berlin Township's master plan examination report, an amendment and an ordinance amending the zoning map and C3 zoning district regulations. Committee members moved to recommend certification to the full commission. Executive Director Grogan provided a presentation on the preliminary state plan. The presentation reviewed the cross acceptance process, new planning goals, including climate change and equity, and the overall impact of the state plan to the Pinelands area. Staff also summarized the municipal performance activities for 2024. And last, committee members heard public comments offering support for consideration of climate change topics and suggesting student internship involvement. That's my report.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments for Alan? All right, thank you. Sue, you're next.
Okay. Start with some good news. This is good. So I think at the last commission meeting in January, I mentioned that we were going to be having to start over with our procurement process for a design historic architect to manage the rehabilitation project for Fenwick Manor. We asked Treasury formally to cancel the procurement process that they had been undertaking. That was done. We received notice of that cancellation at the end of January, which allowed us to move forward with our own RFP. That RFP was posted earlier this month. Yesterday, we posted an optional site visit for any of the consulting firms who were interested in taking a look at the interior of the building. Obviously, they can come look at the exterior whenever they want. But we did have quite a few people come and tour around and take lots of photos of the deteriorating conditions inside the building, particularly in my office. So that was fun. But it was a good response. The bids are due March 5th, so we have a few weeks to wait to see who actually submits bids. But we were encouraged by the communication yesterday and are hopeful that this will be a successful process, and we will have a consultant on board pretty quickly to get started with the project. I think I noted in the monthly report, we've also spoken to the governor's office about the need for additional funding for the project, both to make up for the year-long delay that occurred without being able to get started on the project. That means increased costs for construction and materials. So we calculated that based on the very extensive preservation plan that was prepared a couple years ago, and made that request to the governor's office for the funding we need to make up for the year-long delay, and also to complete all of the tasks in the preservation plan. So I'm hopeful that that will occur.
What kind of money are we talking about?
So 750,000, the bulk of which of that would go towards completing all of the work that's outlined in the preservation plan. There's a small portion of that that we would need just to complete the priority tasks that we did the RFP for. Because of the delay that we experienced with Treasury. So it's a combination of both.
And the architect fee would come out of that
Yeah.
funds.
Yes, correct.
And what's the deadline for submission?
March 5th. So we're getting closer. I hope this time to be successful. Okay, so that was good. That was good news. Also good news, although our funding, our National Park Service funding was not only frozen, but actually removed from our ability to even see the grant funding for a short period of time. It was then restored and we were able to draw that funding down. This is the 298,000 that we receive annually from the Park Service for long-term economic and environmental monitoring. So we were relieved to have that funding restored to us. We held an orientation session for our two newest commissioners. One of whom is here today. There she is. Also, Rick, our new Gloucester County Commissioner, he came. He's very interested and eager to get started. He's unfortunately not able to attend today, so I believe he will be here in person in March to be sworn in. And it seems like he'll be an active and interested participant at the commission level, so we're very happy to have him. We see, maybe the best news, I have a new employee to introduce to all of you. She's here today. Claire Osei, she is a new member of our land use program staff. And I'll read a little short blurb here. She holds a degree in geoscience from Rutgers University. She has her background in environmental science, regulatory compliance, and in supporting water resource management initiatives. Additionally, she's been involved in various environmental research projects, including studies on groundwater discharge and water quality. Prior to joining us, she worked for the Division of Water Enforcement in the Water Resource Management Program at NJDEP, where she focused on assessing non-compliance issues and violations related to water resources. We're very happy to have you. Welcome. And I think you can see from her bio how she'll fit in here and the work that she'll be doing in our office. We have lots of projects. Obviously, water quality, water resources, groundwater, all kinds of things. So she'll gradually be getting trained and oriented and taking on some responsibilities. So this is a great deal, a great relief. We're able to fill some of our vacancies, and that would be a big help to all of us. So that's that bit of good news.
Great, welcome aboard.
Yes, yeah, welcome, Claire. Yeah, the whole smile, Gina smile. Is the new Ed, well, a little bit maybe. Yeah, a little bit.
They're not saying too much, it might leave.
I know, right? Anyway, so that's good, and I think April, her office is also interviewing, right, and looking to getting closer to filling one of their vacancies, so. That will all be good. Will help us to move forward with some of the projects. Speaking of which, I want to give you all an update. Commissioner Walder asked, and I agreed, of course, to give you an update on the CMP amendment proposal that we have been working on, including the Black Run watershed management area change, and just as a reminder, also included in that proposal are a series of other amendments, which to me are of equal importance, very different, but also very important to the commission, which include finally addressing expiration of some very old waivers and assigning an expiration date to certificates of filing. I know it doesn't sound glamorous, but it will be a big help. It will help us not only in processing applications, but also in ensuring that development that maybe submitted applications 20 years ago, you know, we now have a way of requiring new applications and making sure all of our environmental standards are met by those projects, which for whatever reason didn't proceed to develop. There are also amendments in the proposal dealing with regional growth area densities and the Pinelands Development Credit Program, which are very important also. And I'm trying to think, there's some fee changes, but anyway, I just want to remind everyone that the proposal is not just one topic. It contains a variety of very important amendments, which is part of the reason why it is taking a long time to write all that up and get that done. We are very close to having the full proposal done. It simply needs, even made myself a list, there's not to bring them, but the only thing left to write are some of the impact statements at the end of the proposal that deal with things like impacts of the amendments on job production, agriculture, housing production. There's a whole series that are required under the state rulemaking regulations or statute. And so working my way through those, and then it will be done and on its way to the governor's office. So it is in fact very close to being done. We had to do some significant writing and gathering of data for various pieces of the puzzle, but that works. That is it.
Any questions or comments for Sue?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions about the redesignation. Once submitted, what would be the timeline before your redesignation could happen?
So the process would involve first getting approval from the governor's office to move forward with the proposal. I can't give you a time frame for that. You know, we're not in control of that. It'll be dependent on when they complete their review and give us the go ahead. So it could be, I'm not even gonna hazard a guess. I don't know.
Okay. So some additional time, but I guess what I'm asking is because there is that letter of interpretation that does that mean that a permit application for development is imminent? Or is that likely?
No, so let me just go back to the process for a second, which is once we receive the go-ahead from the governor's office, then this commission will be asked to adopt a resolution authorizing publication of the proposal to kick off the public review and comment process. So depending on when that happens, you know, we'll schedule that for the soonest possible commission meeting. And then the proposal will be sent to the Office of Administrative Law for publication in the register. There'll be a 60-day public comment period, after which this commission will be asked to consider all the public comments, make any adjustments to the amendments that are desired and feasible, and then proceed with a resolution to adopt the amendments. Again, that requires the governor's office to review ahead of time and authorize. So the end results, like when will the amendments actually be effective, is probably 6 to 9 months. Because there are so many steps in the process and, not delays, but just, making sure that sufficient time is spent. There'll be a hearing, there'll be a comment period, there'll be consideration of comments. It's, a very public process, so.
No, I was referring to the letter of interpretation of wetlands that was
The other part.
logged in recently, or
So separate from the amendments, we have received an application for a letter of interpretation for, just for wetlands, confirmation of wetland, extensive wetlands on about 770 some acres. That's not an application for development, that's just a confirmation, they want confirmation of the extent of wetlands on the property, so we're coordinating and talking to them about, it's a very large property, and a letter of interpretation of that size obviously requires extensive field work. So that is not something that will be issued imminently. My
okay.
understanding is they're trying to make sure they have, clear understanding of the property. It's been a long time since, they did anything, and as far as we know, in terms of assessing it for development potential or figuring out what to do with it. So the letter of interpretation is kind of their step to at least confirm wetlands boundaries and extensive wetlands, and they're looking to do that first. So obviously, if something else occurs, we'll let you all know, but that they seem to be trying to just get all their paperwork in order at this point. So
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions for Sue? All right, next up, April.
Good morning, everyone. This is kind of a good segue to Sue's discussion just now. I just wanted to take a moment this morning and call attention to the Commission's unique private development application process that differs from many other regulatory agencies. As part of our private application process, our staff has 2 opportunities to review development applications for consistency with our rules. Once when an application is complete, and once when the applicant obtains permits and approvals from a municipality or county and submits them to us for review. When a private development application is completed, we issue a certificate of filing. That certificate of filing is not an approval, and it's a document demonstrating that an application has been completed, and it indicates whether the proposed development is consistent with the regulations in effect at that time. Certificates of filing currently do not expire, and they do not protect an applicant from subsequent changes to the CMP or changes to municipal land use or zoning requirements. In many cases, a development application comes to us, we issue a certificate of filing, the proposal remains unchanged, the applicant proceeds to the municipality, they obtain their permits and approvals, they submit them to us, we review them, and then we issue a letter saying that the permits and approvals can take effect. And then that's the application process in a nutshell. But as many of you know, and as I was kind of reading throughout our notable applications in our management report, that process isn't as always as cut and dry as that. In some cases, you will see that an application proposal can be significantly revised after the issuance of a certificate of filing. We have one application example of that in notable applications in our January management report this month. It's an application in Hamilton Township for the redevelopment of an existing textile manufacturing facility to accommodate 115 residential apartments. Since the issuance of the 2023 CF, the applicant indicated that they need to significantly revise the original proposal to meet DEP requirements. Instead of an addition to the building, they may need to demolish a large portion of the building and reconfigure where the building is located on the property. And because of that, our staff is currently reviewing whether we can, the applicant can use the current certificate of filing, or whether they will need to come back to us for a new and amended certificate of filing. And we have many questions throughout, I'd say, our daily our daily work process here at the commission where people ask, I have this old 1985 filing, and I still use it. So I just wanted to kind of.
And with the amendments we're talking about, the answer will be no.
Yeah, but so that is one thing we wrestle with here. Another form that can take is sometimes the application and the proposal remain the same, but the CMP standards change between the issuance of the certificate of filing and when the permits and approvals are submitted to the commission. We have a case of that in the management report as well this month. You'll see an example of this for an 82 unit residential subdivision in Monroe Township. That CF was issued in 2003. We had subsequent municipal approvals issued in 2007, 2012, and 2019. Without getting into all of the details, the applicant now needs to demonstrate whether the proposed development is consistent with revised stormwater management standards that took effect in 2022. And so we're trying to help the applicant wrestle with that. So that's another twist that our process leads to. I think that an amendment for to allow for certificates of filing, particularly the very, very old ones, would be particularly beneficial to us. And I just wanted to kind of give everybody a quick taste as to what our staff deals with on a regular basis. That's all I have.
Thanks, April. I think it's important to, in the grand scheme of all the work that the staff does, right, here is just one aspect of one piece of one item, that the staff deals with, and it's not, it's not cookie cutter. The staff spends time and is very thoughtful and careful in working with applicants. Thank you for that. Super, super helpful. Anyone have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, if I may,
Go ahead.
I know this has been a significant problem for staff to resolve, and I'm pleased to see the amendment. The question I have is, how long will the certificate of filing be valid?
So 5 years. 5 years unless an applicant uses the certificate of filing and goes to the municipality and gets their site plan or subdivision approval, and then it doesn't expire, and then they're good to go. So it's really new. We'll issue a new CF, it'll say on there, this is good for 5 years. Please go and get your approvals within this 5-year period. That's really, it sounds funny to say, but we have so many instances where applicants complete their applications, not an easy process, get their certificate of filing, and then they disappear for 10, 15 years. So this is designed, we will be very clear in the document. You have 5 years to use this document to obtain your approvals. Please proceed. And as soon as they get an approval and send it back here and we sign off on it, then there's no issue, then they're fine.
So the 5-year period is consistent with the NJDEP's wetlands approval, which is valid for 5 years.
Right, as are our letters of interpretation right now for wetlands, they're good for 5 years too. So we're sort of trying to.
Very good. Thank you very much.
So,
And
so would you put on that certificate of filing, an expiration date?
Yes, absolutely.
It would be the 5 years, but
If we could make it flash and.
from when they get it, so.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, we will, the certificate of filing right now doesn't have any of that, obviously, but when the amendments are done and take effect, we will be prepared with a new form that will have all that information, right? And the back.
I have a
yeah, go ahead, Em.
question, I guess, for April. Since we first started talking about expiration of certificate of filing, which I have no problem with for these old ones. And I think 5 years is a reasonable period of time. But in the meantime, since we did that, we have tied our stormwater regulations to DEP's regulations, which seems to change more frequently than our regulations. And we have just made all our towns go through an expensive conformance process. So what happens if during the 5 years that the certificate of filing is valid, and the owner of the property proceeds in good faith to get development approval at the town level, and then the regulations change again, does that mean he has to start over? Shouldn't there be some period of time when the applicant, in good faith, can rely on the decision that the commission has made at the time of the application and within the period of approval? It was not as much of a concern to me when we had more complete control over regulatory changes, but we tied certain regulations to be consistent and to help the applicant, really. You can't proceed without DEP's approval in some instances, as well as the commission's approval. So I think that's worthy of some thought and consideration.
Any other questions or comments?
If I may, Madam Chair, it's Mark Moriello. I just want to echo what Alan just said. I think there's an opportunity for us to, really give that a greater degree of thought. And part of it is, as Alan explained, is kind of an equity thing for the people that are subject to our regulations. So I've had some, small discussions with Alan about that, but I just want to echo my concurrence with his thoughts on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
I just want to thank April for something that was clear, it is important, it's timely, and congratulations, and just, you have my admiration for you and your staff getting your head around this.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Gina, you're next.
I'm gonna try and tie that in. Let's go with one more item that was in the monthly management report, and that is the water allocation increase at Pinelands Golf Course. So Ernie and I met with DEP to discuss how they will proceed, and the golf course will be returning to the commission to look at how their water allocation increase will be consistent with the recently adopted water management rules. Ernie and I also had a follow-up meeting to discuss with the Bureau of Water Allocation how our staff and their staff could work in a more coordinated fashion to be aware of any issues or inconsistencies between their permitting process and
It's your microphone, Gina.
heck no.
She's close to the mic though there.
That's true.
Between their water allocation permitting process and our standards. So we think we have a way forward that will make that more smooth. So that was a good and productive meeting recently. Also recently Sue and I met with the National Park Service to talk about those economic monitoring projects that I've mentioned before that we needed to defer for staffing shortage reasons. So we also had some resolution on there, and when we prepare the new work plan, some of those we won't move forward with them. Some we'll put together other projects, and for this year at least, the money that had been allocated to those deferred projects would be diverted to environmental monitoring that otherwise the commission covers from conservation fund dollars. The permanent land protection, the third summit, is being pulled together with the agenda and speakers, and we're tentatively scheduling that on April 3rd. The plan is to focus around accessible trails, and I don't know how many of you have your eye on that, but it seems like everybody is looking at accessible trails currently, so it's timely. And with our role in providing some funding for land preservation, but also the regulatory side, I think it's appropriate. We'll do some more outreach to municipalities to get them to participate in that summit. Perhaps give us some feedback on accessible trail standards. for when we're ready to move that rule amendment forward as well. In terms of rules work, Sue mentioned the one package, but we are also moving forward on other rule amendments. One of those is the right-of-way vegetation maintenance or management, depending on which place you read. It kind of means the same thing. These are would be adopting rules that are now in the pilot program, the utility right-of-way management pilot program. So those would be repealed with the adoption of this amendment when it moves forward. But we're having a stakeholder meeting on that. Stacy, I hope I don't steal your thunder. She reached out to Representative Sawicki's office because the representative had authored a bill to regulate right-of-way maintenance. So that a representative from Representative Sawicki's office is planning to attend the stakeholder meeting later this month. Let me see. And the other thing I wanted to mention was our office does the PDC allocation, letters of interpretation, and we had an amazing one that I think I mentioned before, 3,000 some acres in Bass River Township for 333 rights was issued in January. Pretty impressive, 83.25 PDCs.
And just to make even more impressive, should those credits be severed and a deed restriction placed on the property, and the credits listed for sale. Right now, credits are selling for, we've seen a number of sales for $24,000 per right. So times 4 times 333. I mean, that's, sort of mind boggling, but, and we do have one large severance application that's for 30. So active market, supply increasing, there's a lot of demand and the prices are going up, which is a good.
That's it for me.
Just one comment, talking about accessible trails and so forth. I was invited by the governor. We had a roundtable with the Forest Fire Service yesterday. And a lot of comments were talking that came up about cleaning the trails and having access and brake lines and all that. So I would have the Forest Fire Service be sure that they attend that. There's a lot of comments and so forth, so they could be part of that conversation.
Different but similar, was going to say, just in the same vein as you mentioned for the right of way, inviting folks from legislative offices in our region to the Accessible Trails meeting, making sure they have all the information, they participate in the discussion. That way, it's helpful to capture any municipalities or folks who aren't able to participate and make sure that that information and the participation in the discussion is as broad as possible.
Very good, yeah. Because it's a big topic with all this forest fires and getting access, getting in, getting brake lines and so forth. It's real.
Yeah.
And particularly, around these homes that are in these wooden settings. Clearing and our regulations, just make sure that a lot of moving parts.
Any other questions or comments? Alan?
Gina, when you had your meeting on permanent land protection, we ever describe the typical deed restrictions that will be asked to be imposed on that property if we participate with the funding?
So the focus of the previous 2 meetings really was about getting the funding out there, the Pinelands Conservation Fund, and trying to get participation in that. So I will say, no, we didn't focus on the deed restriction.
Although we did ask whether people, because we've been sort of curious about why we haven't had more participation. So that is one of the things we've asked people is the deed restriction a hurdle, a problem?
But it wasn't right. Yes, we've discussed reasons why participation has been low. That was never one of the issues that was cited by anybody we talked to, but, and we've never done an actual presentation.
I'm just, I've seen some of the sample restrictions, and depending on what the ultimate use of the property will be, if it's just a natural way it's going to remain in its natural state, the restrictions I think would be fine, but if you had an active recreation objective in mind, and you participated in the funding, I'm not sure you'd want, the money would be worthwhile, because of all the restrictions. Right, and, you know, a lot of the natural land projects that are properties that have been purchased, there's pressure to build trails and, passive type recreation, not active recreation. And I'm not sure how all that would work with restrictions.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about that during the summer in terms of what RD restrictions allow to go on. In terms of trails.
Right, I mean, you do currently have provisions in the deed restriction that address trails, informational kiosks, things like that. The other thing is in the past where there has been some conflict, we've been able to work with the applicant to achieve both goals.
So is it a standard restriction that gets applied to every property that gets kind of its conservation money? Or is it customized?
There is a standard form which most people accept, but there have been instances where we've had to do some tweaking and customization.
Okay, so there is some leeway, at least in the staff's mind.
Well, I want to be clear though, the tweaking Stacy's talking about is not to permit active recreational facilities, for example. It's to deal more with clearing or forestry activities or.
Okay. All right, well, that was just one question.
Yes, go ahead. When you had your discussion with PPP about Block 11 and the golf course, that project, but specifically, did they talk about their plan for policy or talks that are over allocated already and how they're going, what they're going to do about that?
They didn't directly, we didn't directly discuss that. However, they did mention that they have rules under development themselves, water allocation rules under development themselves. Those rules, they plan to revise to specifically identify the Pinelands Commission's role in managing the Pinelands area, which is a step forward. But they did not specifically talk to us about what changes they're going to do to implement the water supply plan.
So they addressed administration and oversight and responsibility, but they did not they didn't really address about the resource itself and how they're going to.
Right, our goal really was to make sure that our two processes were aligned in permitting. It wasn't about discussing their water allocation rules.
The other piece of this is when you get down to something like this golf course where it may be a matter of dueling modeling, for example, because you're trying to do seasonal use and different sources for the water in the same property. Do we have modeling capabilities here or will you have access to modeling, expertise and DEP that we can bring?
Neither one. So what we have in place is an agreement with USGS. DEP felt, when we were working on the rule, we discussed with DEP the potential for them to do the modeling, and they didn't feel it was in their wheelhouse. So we reached out to USGS. We executed a contract right after the rule was adopted. That contract is in place for a couple of years. It will have to be renewed. I forget the exact date, but probably tomorrow. Yeah. Now that you mention it. So when an application for an increase in water allocation from the Kirkwood-Cohansey or a new diversion comes to us, we'll be working directly with USGS to review everything from the first step, the team analysis, through the pump test, design, and execution. and the final, give me a hint, mod flow modeling. So we have a contract in place.
Thank you very much. That makes me feel a little better. Let's hope USGS keeps their water officer.
Madam Chair, I've got to leave the meeting now, but I want to wish you all a great weekend. All right, thank you.
So Mark, thank you.
Uh,
Any other questions or comments for Gina? All right, thank you. Stacy.
Good morning, everyone. You had an opportunity to look at the management report. You can see there is a lot of litigation going on at the moment with regard to the commission. I just wanted to highlight a few things for you, and Gina was a nice segue into my first matter, which is Clayton's challenge of the KC rules. I wanted to let you know that in January, PPA filed a motion to participate in that litigation as an amicus, filing an amicus brief. The court granted that amicus motion at the end of January. Of course, Clayton opposed it. Clayton was given the opportunity to respond to that motion, and since their opposition essentially was their response, we don't anticipate that they will be filing anything more. So at this point where things stand, all the briefing has been completed in that case. PPA had asked for oral argument, and the court noted that it'd be up to the team whether or not it feels oral argument is necessary. So they may decide the matter on the papers. If I hear different and there will be oral argument, I will let you know.
Do you have any guess as to how much time it might take before we know?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably 6 months. So we know about oral argument. It depends upon how heavy the court's current calendar is. Will be assigned or is assigned to a 3-panel team. And we'll just have to see what happens. Okay, the next thing, also segueing off April and the problems with applications that get certificates of filing their approval and then never get billed. We have a matter that has been filed in Chancery against us. This was a property owner who had obtained a 13-lot subdivision for development of a single-family dwelling in Woodland Township. They ultimately received their conditional approval, land use board's approval in August of 2007, conditional Burlington County approval in February of 2008, and nothing happened. The Burlington County finally issued a final subdivision approval in March of 2022, and at that point the matter was called up. So these individuals decided not to pursue their administrative remedies and went straight to Chancery. It is likely that we will be filing a motion. I know that the township has already filed a motion to dismiss from billing and assault administrative remedies. Next one would be artistic materials. As you know, we moved forward with the litigation and filed the complaint in Chancery. They had until February 12th to file their answer. We have received their answer. So now there'll be further discussion with the AG's office as to what the next steps will be. We could potentially file a motion, but really we're just now moving forward. This is the beginning of a process. Normally when you're in litigation, the next thing would be discovery, motions, practice, etc. And finally, this is another new matter. We have a property owner who filed an appeal of a staff guidance letter. The property owner received a no call up for subdivision of the property. It's a resource extraction site. They want to do some what they consider accessory development. The accessory development is not permitted in the zone. They asked the commission staff, they submitted a letter of interpretation application, and they asked the staff to hold it. The staff provided guidance in ways that they could move forward. And instead of acting on those options, they went ahead and went to the appellate division. As you know, the appeal of right to the appellate division is only permitted when there's a final agency action. This is not a final agency action. Even once a letter of determination is issued, the correct process is to go to the Office of Administrative Law, which would then allow the commission to review the initial decision of the administrative law judge and issue its final decision. Only then is an appeal appropriate. So we are working with the AG's office on that matter.
Okay, any questions for Stacy? Thank you. Brad?
I only have one quick update, and that's a plug for a topic that will be discussed at the February PI meeting. It's going to be a presentation on the fourth round affordable housing and what, what's going to need for Highlands municipalities and what we might be expecting to see likely before the PI in future months this year. So stay tuned.
Coming attract.
Yeah, right, little teaser. All right, thank you, Brad. Last certainly not least, Paul.
Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day. I have a few updates. First, as you may recall, we led a tour of the Pinelands for representatives from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO, on January 10th, 2025, including a delegation from Paris and New York, and renowned Swiss chef and plant-based food advocate, Daniel Hum. He's showing here. He operates 11 Madison Park, which is a 4-star restaurant in New York City. And so we first toured our exhibits, talked about the Pinelands, talked about how we are a biosphere. We were designated as a biosphere in the 1980s, and commission manages and oversees Pinelands Biosphere. Then we went to the Pine Barrens native fruit cranberry farm here in Pemberton, and received a wonderful guided bus tour of their operations, learned about how they grow cranberries and harvest them. And then we stopped, well, first we got to get out. Here he is, Chef Hum, felt the need to go tour the bugs. And after that, we went to historic White Spot Village, where we were able to go into their general store, and some of the participants were able to purchase some items made from locally grown blueberries and cranberries. After that, we went to Pinelands Preservation Alliance's Rancocas Creek Farm, which is a 72-acre farm that's chemical free. It's an example of community supported agriculture, and we talked about sustainable practices for growing food and how that could be a model. And we had a great exchange of ideas. Here's some more photos from their farm. And that's it for the tour. Meanwhile, we are wrapping up. We've been working diligently on the annual report for 2024. It's been written, edited, designed. It's 34 pages. It's really great. It will be on the agenda for the commissioners next month. Just no small feat. Lastly, our Pinelands short course, we've been heavily promoting it, and a number of the courses have closed, but a number are still open. So if anyone in attendance would like to sign up, course commissioners, if you have yet to sign up, you are more than welcome to attend for free. Let us know, let me know, let Joel Mott know which courses you want. As I said, there's lots of openings and we have a great lineup. I'm pleased to note that the band has asked me to sit in with them again. So check that out. That should be fun. And that's all I have.
Thanks. Anyone have any questions or comments for Paul? All right.
For the short course, attendance greater this year than last year?
It's currently we're over like 300 or so, 330 or so. So we have a little ways to go. So we had over 500 last year, but we do anticipate, as always, the last few weeks, it's kind of wild and crazy, but we are attempting to really get the word out about our courses. As I noted, we have a wonderful lineup of 37 presentations.
Good job.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments for Paul? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on the agenda. Can I get a motion and a second for resolution for 2 public development applications, one in Barnegat Town and one in Estelle Manor City?
Second.
Thank you. Ernie, you want to number these for us, please?
Certainly. To start with the Barnegat Township application, this is for a 144-foot tall elevated potable water storage tank. This tank is being proposed to provide improved water supply to the western part of Barnegat Township. It's in a regional growth area, it's permitted use. It's immediately adjacent to an existing residential subdivision. The city of Estill Manor, they're proposing to pave actually 2 separate sections of roads. These are not contiguous. They're currently gravel. They range anywhere from 12 to, I believe, 18 feet in width. They're proposing to pave them to a width of 12 feet to improve vehicular safety and also to reduce the amount of maintenance necessary for the gravel road.
Any questions for Ernie on this? Yep, go ahead, Jessica.
Yes, I have one about is the market water stuff. I'm just curious, is it a new well that's going to supply that, or is it's just for fresh?
That's for pressure and storage.
Is it? I noticed that there was a 200-foot, this is really sort of just as a side, but there was a 200-foot, you notice?
Yes.
And I didn't see that it was within 200 feet of any of any of the building, any of the buildings back there, so. Is it in an yet undeveloped area, or is it,
Well,
is it contiguous to a completed?
the area that's going to be developed is currently undeveloped. It's currently wooded. It's immediately adjacent to a subdivision that was approved years ago by the commission. As part of the notice requirement, the applicant had to notice everybody within 200 feet of the parcel on which it's going to be.
Right, that's, out there, it wasn't.
Well, actually, it was a few because of the adjacent subdivision.
Right, I had trouble finding it, I did look on the map, I was having trouble looking at different, different things, I was having difficulty finding it. Mainly because I couldn't find Danco's Road.
Because it doesn't exist.
So happy that didn't bother.
Any other questions on these 2 applications? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, and then can I get a motion in a second, please, for a resolution for an application for public development at Stockton University?
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Ernie, you wanna go through this one, please?
So as you mentioned, this is for the construction of a replacement sanitary sewer pump station at Stockton University. They currently are serviced by sanitary sewer. A couple of notes is, as you're probably aware, this application's been in the queue for quite a while due to issues regarding deed restriction. I spoke with Stacy yesterday. According to Stacy, Stockton has actually reported or potentially reported the new deed restriction with the county, and they're awaiting a stamped recorded copy back from the county. As I mentioned, it's going to replace an existing sanitary sewer pump station. It's immediately adjacent to that old pump station, which is within a maintained grass road shoulder. One thing of interest is it's actually when the pump station was established before the commission was established, it's in a rural development area. Sanitary sewer is not permitted in a rural development area, but we do have certain rules that allow the expansion of an existing non-conforming use, which this actually will meet that standard.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Ernie? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Great, thank you. We don't need to. Yeah, but we're not. It's just, we do. All right, sorry. Okay, excuse me, sorry. Catching up here. Can I get a motion and a second on 2? I'll do them separately. On 1, to certify an ordinance in Barnegat Township.
Move it.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Brad, since I don't know what I'm doing, can you please tell us what this is? Please don't know.
Good morning, commissioners. You should have received in your packets for this meeting, an executive director's report for Barnegat Township ordinance 2024-32. Paul, if you could bring up the first slide.
Is this it?
Up above.
No.
Okay, this ordinance is amending the district regulations, in the CN Zone West of Barnegat Township. It is specifically impacting, the regional growth area portion of the township, so that is what's being showed in this, exhibit here. The area outlined in red is the CN Zone West. What the ordinance is trying to do, well, actually just for a little bit of history, CN Zone West has seen quite a few ordinance amendments in recent years that have come before the commission and been approved to allow for things like mixed use development, community, continuing care retirement communities. And this ordinance is sort of seeking to harmonize the existing standards that would allow for a mixed use development that contains a continuing care retirement community. So the commission has previously approved ordinances that would allow those uses separately, but at the time they weren't sort of written in a way that, you know, a developer could come in and sort of develop a combined sort of development with both in a way that's like easily interpretable based on density regulations and PDC regulations. So importantly, the rules would only allow this type of development within 1,000 feet of the Garden State Parkway. So it's really limited to an existing 22.5 acre parcel that's highlighted in yellow. The ordinance would essentially allow a density of 17 units per acre. This would be inclusive of multifamily unit apartments and independent living and assisted living units that will be associated with CCRC. They would also be modifying the PDC requirements for this type of use to require a mandatory PDC requirement of 25% for multifamily apartment units and a 20% mandatory requirement for independent living and assisted living units. Overall, it is essentially reducing the residential zoning capacity for this zone in the regional growth area by 68 units. But it would increase the overall PDC potential by about 3 rights. So a little bit less density, a little more PDC sort of obligation. So this was discussed at length at our P&I committee meeting last month, and staff is recommending certification.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Brad? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thanks. Okay, can I get a motion and a second, please, on a Berlin Township ordinance? A second.
Second.
Thank you. Brad?
All right, Paul, you mind bringing up?
Oh.
those things?
Okay, hold on.
I'll say we've been working with Berlin Township for a couple of years on this matter. As you can see, the township adopted a re-examination report and master plan amendment back in 2023. That recommended a number of changes, including changes to zoning boundaries and changes to permitted uses within their commercial C3 regional commercial growth zone. So I'll start with the zoning map amendment first. Paul, can you zoom in just a little bit?
Absolutely. I could zoom in a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so the area in red is approximately 2 parcels, I want to say. It's about 22.5 acres that township is proposing to rezone from the C2 RV district to the C3 regional commercial growth zone district. This would require a change in the underlying management area from a rural development area to a regional growth area. As you can see, this area of the township is right on the edge of the Pinelands area. And so it is adjacent to existing regional growth area lands and existing development. I'll say in addition to that zoning change, the township is changing the district regulations that were applied to the C3 zone. So it's not only just the area highlighted red, but the remainder of the C3 zone. They are updating various commercial uses. So it's a non-residential commercial zone that had a variety of commercial uses that hadn't really been updated since the mid-90s. So they went in and made updates for the various commercial uses we've been seeing more recently in recent years. But however, they are also allowing, conditionally permitting, continuing care retirement communities. So again, this is sort of a, something we're seeing in a lot of municipalities. In this case, it would conditionally permit CCRCs on lots of at least 10 acres. They would allow maximum residential density of 18 units per acre. And PDCs would be required for 20% of the independent living units and assisted living units. So within the overall regional growth area, including the area proposed for redesignation, there's only there's only 2 lots that would meet that minimum lot size requirement. So overall, it would change the residential zoning capacity of the regional growth area in the township to about 441 units. It would increase PDC potential by about 80 rights. Additionally, the township previously had a unique PDC requirement for non-residential development in the C3 zone. In this case, it was based on a base density and a bonus density related, a base floor area requirement, with the ability to increase that floor area requirement through the use of PDCs. This was enacted in the early 90s. And it was tied to some concerns about water use and water supply for the C3 district as it was expanded in the early 1990s. They are going to continue to maintain a mandatory PDC requirement for non-residential development at a rate of 1 right per acre developed, including associated improvements. While we are confident that the sort of water concerns that were that existed in the early 90s when the regional growth area was expanded at the time have been sort of dealt with. The continuing inclusion of a mandatory PDC requirement for non-residential uses we felt was important as sort of a partial offset for the management area change. As you can see, there's not a lot of land within Berlin Township, so there wasn't much room for doing offsetting measures in terms of, downzoning or, lowering of, redesignating other areas of the township. So overall, we felt like it was a sort of an appropriate offsetting measure. Yeah, I think I'll just stop there. Sorry, I was on a roll. So we are recommending approval.
Yeah, any questions for Brad? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you, thanks, Brad. Okay, next up is a public comment period, only on 4 applications for public development projects. One from Department of Environmental Protection in Jackson, one from the New Jersey Turnpike Authority in South Toms River, another one from DEP in Washington Township, an Egg Harbor City application. So Paul, can you please put your in here? Fantastic. The numbers on the screen for folks at home. Again, a reminder, this is public comment on just these 4 applications. Ernie, do you want to just run through these 4 quickly, please?
The first application proposed by NJDEP is for, as you mentioned, a maintenance building. That's the site of an existing NJDEP Forest Research Education Facility. They're proposing a maintenance building to help facilitate that operation. The next one is by the Turnpike Authority, and I actually have to make a correction here. The portion of the project within Pinelands is actually only half a mile. It's not 2.9 miles is the entire project. This is at the northern terminus of the Pinelands area. So I do apologize for that mistake. As you're aware, between 80 and 83 is very congested. They're proposing improvements to relieve that congestion, make it safer. NJDEP, the Green Bank, this is where the commission previously approved the conversion of the prior Green Bank school to office for NJDEP, departments. As part of that, they would like to install an access road and a storage area to store vessels, trailers that are required as part of that operation. And then finally, in Ann Arbor City, they're proposing a 3-lot re-subdivision of 4 existing lots. That's to allow the creation of 3 lots that meet the zoning requirements for residential development in the city.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ernie on those? All right, anybody on the phone?
No callers.
All right, anybody in the room on that? We all know one of those, sure. Just state your name at the beginning, please.
Yes, Stephen Elliott, Pineland Preservation Alliance. So we were able to briefly review the Parkway expansion files and seek some expert opinion on that. So while we acknowledge that the applicant has over-designed their stormwater mostly with retention basins with manufactured treatment devices, this does not negate the permanent impacts to wetlands transition areas that's in the application. We, of course, advocate for green infrastructure in all cases unless it's absolutely infeasible. But we are hoping that the commission will apply wetlands regulations and their stormwater regulations rigidly in this case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else in the room on any of these? All right, I'm gonna close the public comment period. Just to open it back up again. General public comment period. So the number back on the screen and then thank you very much. As a reminder, this is not a discussion or Q&A. You'll have 3 minutes to make your public comments. As always, commissioners and staff are available after the meeting if you'd like to have a discussion on a certain topic. This is not that. All right, first up, John Volpa.
Good morning, commissioners. John Volpa, founder of Black Run Preserve, speaking as a private citizen and resident of Evesham Township. Recent events concerning the headwaters of the Black Run Preserve got me thinking about what it would actually mean to build 256 houses with wells and septic systems in the approximately 728 acres identified in the Evesham Open Space Recreation Management Plan as Evesham Headwaters. This property runs north-south along the Kettle Run Road. The wetlands that feed the 2 Black Run streams are in that northern section and flow north, creating the southwest branch of the Rancocas Creek, which at this point, those streams are class 1. An upland ridge, basically running east and west, bisects the Headwaters property and the Arrowhaven portion of the Black Run Preserve. Anything built on the north side of this ridge would negatively affect water quality, which I'm sure the Pinelands Commission is well aware of. It's obvious that no housing should ever be constructed in this protected area. The southern side of the ridge is the only logical location for development. The same ridge crosses the Arrowhaven section, which enabled the Evesham MUA to construct new wastewater detention basins in 2011, thus decommissioning the original basins in the Black Run Preserve in an effort to protect its pristine waters. So that means 256 houses would have to be constructed in the southern section of the Headwaters property, which is places it in the Kettle Run Stream watershed, as is the Marlton Lakes community. It's not difficult to imagine each new house having 2 cars, adding possibly 500 cars on the winding 2-lane Kettle Run Road. In 1999, a traffic study was conducted for the Arrowhaven section when an ill-conceived plan to build a sports complex with parking for 200 vehicles was once considered. If we consider that too many Pine Barrens homeowners do what they do once they have a certificate of occupancy, the reality is basically they pave over the stone driveway that was required. They cut down trees, plant sod on sand that then immediately needs annual applications of mass quantities of fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, and lime. And of course, regular irrigation in order to keep the sod alive instead of a forest. This mixture of chemicals runs off into the groundwater aquifers. Consider that 526 wells supporting grass and non-natives could do to the Kettle Run Stream hydrology over decades. especially if those wells pulled from the upper and shallow aquifer of the Copeland Cohansey, which is the lifeblood of the Pine Barrens ecosystem. Pinelands Commission may recall that the federally endangered swamp pink calls the Kedwell Run stream and Marlton Lakes its habitat, which was once threatened with overdraw by the Berlin well in the early aughts. Considering the precarious nature of today's climate and more frequent droughts, how much stress can the local flora and fauna endure? Or what if those new homeowners drill deeper into the Mount Laurel aquifer, which municipal wells are also tapped into, along with the oldest and deepest aquifer, the PRM? Those
Can
two
I
aqu-
ask you to wrap up, please, Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Thank you.
Those two aquifers have been part of a borrow from Peter to pay Paul system for quite a while. Imagine the potential impact of 256 houses on the land and aquifers, plus the increased traffic are only three immediate issues that come to mind if the upland area of the Evesham headwaters were ever developed. Therefore, I ask you to please work to create a path to protect the whole headwaters property, keeping the Black Run watershed pristine, enabling it perhaps to become one day a part of the Black Run Preserve. Respect.
Thank you. Next up, Fred Akers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Fred Akers from the Greater Harbor Watershed Association. And first, I want to thank the commission and commission staff for your focus on protecting the groundwater in the Pinelands. You guys are doing a good job with that. I also wanted to make a shout out to Brad Minute for the finding of facts for the Berlin Township ordinance application they just passed. That was like a great read. It had a lot of history in there about Berlin Township. And it was really well written and very comprehensive. So I enjoyed that. And I wanted to, I think I mentioned this before, but we're beginning to see, or for a while, we're seeing increase in erosion and coastal marsh flooding and marsh dying from being flooded down in the Pinelands CAFRA area. And we're working pretty actively now with DEP and DOT in trying to figure out how to use dredge material when they're dredging for navigation channels to be applied to the marsh. And it seems like there's a new culture for doing that. In the past, it wasn't really permitted, but now it's, if we don't raise up the marsh, it's going to become water and it won't exist anymore. So we're working on that, but there still is a loophole where private development that dredges, there's no provision for that to be beneficially reused. So it's still going to Tuckahoe Turf Farm and Corbin City. We're seeing that, but a success story. We were able to connect dredging of Patcon Creek with the application of 56,000 cubic yards to Beasley's Point, which is going to be used for the redevelopment of the power plant area. So, anyways, thanks again.
Wrapping the door. Thank you, Fred. Next up, Elizabeth V. Elizabeth, you just state your full name to start with.
Hi, good morning. My name is Elizabeth Velasquez, and I live in Sturbridge Lakes in Voorhees. And I'm here today to stress the critical importance of protecting the forest near our neighborhood and urge the Pinelands Commission to expedite the approval of rezoning of the Black Run watershed as a forest area. Like many of my neighbors, I chose to live here because of the natural beauty that surrounds us. These woods are not just trees and wildlife. They are a sanctuary, a place where we can reconnect with nature and find peace in an increasingly hectic world. However, this precious space is now under threat. A housing development will not only destroy the natural habitat, but also strip away the very essence of what makes this area so special. We must act quickly to ensure these woods are preserved for future generations. not only for their beauty, but for the critical role they play in maintaining environmental balance. I kindly urge the Pinelands Commission to work with us to secure the protection of the Black Run watershed as a designated forest area. Once it's lost forever. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Next up, Dr. Amy Gould.
Hi, my name is Dr. Amy Golden. Since April 2023, I've been attending Pinelands Commission meetings to express my concern that development in and around the Black Run watershed was imminent. I described steps that the landowner was taking, including land surveys and a snake study. Director Grogan, in a Pinelands Commission meeting on November 23rd, 2023, you stated that the cluster plan of 290 units in 175 acres was no longer feasible, and that a new proposal would revise the Commission's land capability map to redesignate 2,440 acres of the Black Run watershed in Evesham Township from rural development area to forest area. You stated that you were aiming for this new proposal to be sent to the governor's office by the end of 2023, and hopefully to be back to the commission for public hearings by February 2024. When that didn't happen, you told us that there were staffing issues and other priorities. We continued to ask you the status of the new Black Run proposal over the following 11 months. We continued to report to you that changes were occurring in the private property, including the sale of Yorktown property contingent on building. Again, we were told the rule proposed, on December 13th, 2024, at the meeting of the Pinelands Commission, you stated the rule proposal is almost complete and the next step in the process is to send the rule to the governor's office, which should happen before the new year. Then again, we still hadn't heard whether it had been sent, and I held a private meeting with you and your staff and Senator State Beach on January 8th, when you again stated that the proposal would be submitted by the end of the week. This still did not happen. As you stated earlier today, the Pinelands Commission received an application for a letter of interpretation and T&E study regarding a new 256 single-family dwelling development in Black Run Preserve. My concern is that while the proposal is going through the process of approval, an application could be filed, and I assume that it would have to be considered under the current RDA designation. This is a watershed moment, figuratively and literally. I am asking you and pleading with you to work with urgency. We would also appreciate if you would describe how you intend to prioritize the Black Run rule proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Golden. Next up, Stephen Elliott.
Good afternoon again, or good morning again. Stephen Elliott, Pinelands Preservation Alliance, but I also have the pleasure of serving on the Evesham Environmental Commission and the Board of Trustees for both the Friends of the Black Run Preserve and the Rancocas Conservancy. I'm not here representing them today, but I just wanted to mention that because I have had the good fortune of being accepted in a community of land stewards that do work on the ground, provide funding for restoration and educational opportunities, as well as lead educational opportunities about the uniqueness of Pinelands and how special and important it is. I apologize in advance for speaking plainly, but those of us concerned with the long-term protection of the Black Run are alarmed by the delays because this commission has failed to act with urgency. A Pinelands haven gracing the pages of your very own annual calendar is at risk of dying slowly from upstream development. It is hard at this point not to believe this commission has acted in bad faith, continuing to delay a CMP amendment that is not new. It has been in the works for many years. While developers plot the Black Run's destruction in the background, now with educational kiosks or benches donated by Pinelands stewards that this body considers violations, but with cheaply constructed mansions, turf lawn, and deforestation, as well as stormwater runoff. Now, I've had the pleasure of helping with stream monitoring program with Marlton Middle Schoolers in the Black Run, a partnership between the Friends of the Black Run, Pinelands Preservation Alliance, the AmeriCorps Watershed Ambassador Program, and of course, the Marlton School System. We teach these kids about watersheds, water quality, macroinvertebrates, and bioindicators. We contrast the Pinelands stream in front of them with the streams in their neighborhoods. And even in 6th grade, the young scholars are able to list the differences and extrapolate the impacts that human development can have on our waterways. We are asking that you keep this area from becoming a case study, to keep this area on its path to restoration, and act with urgency to complete your work on the CNP amendment and to protect this area. And we will take it from there. Thank you. Additionally, concerning the water allocation applications, one thought that we had at Pinelands Preservation Alliance was to require local approvals, specifically in the Huck 11s considered stressed. So if they're at 438% of their capacity, then there needs to be a public hearing at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up, Carolyn Gallagher.
Good morning, my name is Carolyn Gallagher, and I am a resident of Sturbridge Lakes, the property that's adjacent to the watershed that we're talking about for the Black Run. And I would just, I'm just here to speak up, to try to speak up. First of all, I want to thank you all for this opportunity to speak up. I appreciate that. But I am very concerned about development of that property for many reasons. One of them, actually, all of them have to do with things that John Volpa has said. So I'm not going to reiterate those things. But one thing that hasn't been spoken about is how this really does not serve the public if it were to be developed. One of the things, this is just a very simple thing. If you were to look at Zillow, if you were to go looking for a home, you can now plug in what are the risks of fire, what are the risks of flooding to a specific area. And one of the things you can click on now is air quality. And I think of how trees really do help improve the air quality. If we were to cut down more trees in this area, it's going to impact the air quality. It's going to impact a lot of things that were already discussed, but it's also going to impact the air quality. I'm a member of a local outdoor club. I have led hikes through Black Run Preserve, and it's absolutely beautiful. And to think of how we need to protect that area by protecting the watershed is just so crucial. How it affects people's mental health. There are so many areas which you're probably wondering, what are they? I'm standing here speaking, but it's mental health, it's air quality, it's the water quality, it's we have had severe drought. And when you look at the entire state, which the board here, the commission here does, our area has had severe drought and other areas of the state have just had drought. So I think that having more homes would only impact that more. And again, I'm sorry to reiterate something that John Volpa said, but the traffic impact, I think, would be substantial. Days when I have driven from down past the Marlton bypass, which is going past Kings Grant. On a given morning, the traffic is backed up all the way to Kings Grant right now. Or if you're to go down Braddock Mill Road, the traffic is backed up. At one time I counted 48 cars backed up on just a regular weekday, trying to get to Route 73. So yes, there will be cars that would want to go out in that direction to Route 73. I don't think that I think that would be a detriment to the public for our housing values as well. I would not I would not be inclined to purchase my house in Sturbridge Lakes today if I knew that this development might be imminent because of traffic, because of the increased traffic we already have. And so I just wanted to say, I hope that you'll consider those things that I said.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Michelle Corning.
Okay, I'm gonna pass it.
Okay. Jason Howard.
Hey, everybody, it's Jason Howell, Pinelands Preservation Alliance. Gonna jump around a little bit. First off, I just wanted to say, why are we all here? We're here to protect the Pine Barrens ecosystem. That's the whole point of this whole organization. Everybody that comes to these meetings, we're all trying to do the same thing, protect the Pine Barrens ecosystem and the resources and benefits that it provides to the people that live within it and in the rest of New Jersey, and even from far away. Because we can get many visitors, of course, from all over, and you can see that in the visitor book of the Pinelands Commission. So this is a really special place. Going down to Mays Landing, I really hope that you make it a little easy on that development there by Lake Lenape with the old Wheaton's warehouse, because that has been abandoned for so long, and it's really a proper use of the redevelopment provisions and all that. So I hope you go easy on them a little bit. That would be such a great benefit too. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to do that too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to.
I'm just making a point that I think it's an important project. So I just wanted to make it. I thank you for your work on that, because we often see redevelopment over forests or farms, which is just totally important. But this, of course, is a good use of that. There are some other applications coming online, like more applications for artificial turf, say at elementary schools. I can't tell you how opposed I am to that. And just an example, there's a story, a historic example in West Orange, New Jersey, where the Radium Corporation had immigrant teenagers, girls, work for them and paint watches with radium. And over time, they got all kinds of diseases. The science was already known that it was bad, but there was no regulation, there was no enforcement of these provisions. Well, artificial turf is now known, it's terribly toxic. It's bad for kids, it's bad for the environment. And while you may not be able to regulate building materials, I think it's worth looking at a moratorium on this use. Because one, it is an impervious surface, and two, it will pollute the waterway. So I think that is within your paradigm there. Also, we have natively grown or real turf grass that could be used in place of that. So there's no real reason for it to be used. Going to jump around to the Black Run. So the Black Run Preserve, I think, is one of the most important properties of the Pine Barrens, acre for acre. And I say that because, we exist on the goodwill of the people. So we have the public support of the state of New Jersey, the people of the state of New Jersey, to exist to protect this ecosystem. So many people use the Black Run Preserve. It is the most important place, and I think it's our duty to make sure that its integrity remains solid from here to, as long as we, continue to exist as a state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody on the phone?
We do have a caller.
Okay, great.
Good morning, caller. You are live in our meeting. Can you please state your name for the record?
Hello, this is Heidi Ye from Pinelands Preservation Alliance. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak remotely today. So I was going to suggest, while you're making changes to the certificate of filing process, I'd like to recommend a name change as well. The current name is vague and seems to cause confusion for applicants who make the honest mistake of confusing it for a final approval, or more devious actors who try to pass it off to others as a final approval. So even though you very clearly state on the certificate itself that this is not a final approval, this does not seem to prevent this confusion. So I suggest a different name, such as preliminary approval, to more obviously indicate that this is not a final approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Any other callers?
There are no other callers.
All right, I'm going to close public comment period. Any commissioners have any comments before we move to adjourn?
Madam Chairman, I have just one question of the staff. We hear a lot of testimony about the Black Run watershed. Does any of the municipalities that are affected by this proposal have a natural lands program tax? I know Burlington County does. Does Evesham have such a tax?
Do they have a tax for open space and management? Yes, they do.
Because the reality is, if you want to see no development on the Black Run Preserve, the public's going to have to own it, because you can't legally restrict all development possibilities from a privately owned piece of property. You have to provide some beneficial use. So I would encourage you to look at funding opportunities, Burlington County, DEP, Green Acres, nonprofits that are out there, and
And don't forget, the commission has
the commission has
Offered
limited funds.
$3 million.
So, I know that I went through this, in my county, my home county, I was in Ocean County. They, a circumstance changed in the Oyster Creek watershed. The commission changed the management area there. There were numerous, private properties that were in some form of thought process of development. And the county's natural lands program bought them all. And it added it to the Wells Mills County Park. So, that's an approach Ocean County chose to take that was fair to the property owners, the private property owners, and protected the public's interest in preserving that area undeveloped. And I would encourage you to pursue some discussions with other entities that might be helpful to you to make an acquisition of all or a portion or whatever you can fund in that regard. You can't do it just by regulations. I guess really what I wanted to say to the public today.
Thanks, Alan. Any other comments?
They should probably say that those efforts have been going on for many years, trying to pull together sufficient funding to preserve that property. But I think what's at hand now is an additional layer of protection through at least redesignating it to at least limit potential development.
Thanks, Doug. Any other comments? All right, hearing none. Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.